There are great summer beach resort areas around the world, and many of them are surprisingly cheap. Join me on a tour of some of the best and cheapest, including a bunch of really interesting places that you probably never heard of, and all-inclusive resorts for under $100 per night for 2 people. There are great beaches all over the Caribbean, and we will start with 2 of them that have the best deals on all-inclusive resorts. July and August are popular in Cancun, but room rates are about 30% lower than in the winter high season here. It will be warm every day in the summer months in Cancun, but if you're staying at a beach resort, you'll be getting plenty of good breezes nearly all the time, so it doesn't feel too bad, and the rooms all have great AC. This is a huge area running from the Cancun hotel zone in the north down to Playa del Carmen, Cozumel, and Tulum in the south. The best deals, at least for those of us who like to have some drinks while on vacation, are at the all-inclusive beach resorts. Here's a very well-reviewed resort in Playa del Carmen for $268 a night for 2 people including all taxes, and you can stay at a place in Cancun itself for just a bit more this time of year. The Cancun area is the easiest to reach on this list for most people, and also the most expensive on this list, so things get cheaper from here. Next up is Punta Cana, Dominican Republic, which is not only cheaper but actually has milder summer weather as well as more comfortable high temperatures on most days. As I've said before on other videos, Punta Cana has become sort of a vacation factory with well over 100 all-inclusive resorts that tend to be much larger than those in the rest of the Caribbean, often with 500 or more rooms at each. Here's a really nice all-inclusive beach resort for $211 per night in late July, and it would be over $300 per night in January. The Punta Cana area offers the best value for all-inclusive beach resorts in the Caribbean, but if you prefer an a la carte beach hotel, I'd recommend the Cancun area. An even cheaper part of the Caribbean that is also pretty easy to reach for most people is Cartagena, Colombia. The best thing about this place, aside from the low prices, is that it's got a historic walled city in the middle of town, so there's lots of great sightseeing and shopping, and then a pretty decent beach that is almost walking distance away. Honestly, the beaches here aren't fluffy white sand, but they are still pretty nice, and there are loads of good resorts to choose from right on the Caribbean. Here's an all-inclusive place for just $159 per night in late July, and it gets really good reviews. Pretty good hotels that just include breakfast go for about half that price, and in general, the food and even alcoholic drinks are pretty cheap almost everywhere you go, so this is definitely the cheapest Caribbean beach destination of all. Let's go even farther south to Brazil, which is of course in the southern hemisphere, so July and August are part of winter here. Rio de Janeiro is in the tropics though, so it's warm every day of the year, and these winter temperatures are probably more appealing to a lot of people compared to the Caribbean heat this time of year. There are a few all-inclusive hotels here, but the best value tends to be the other places as long as you pick a safe area on or very near the beach. Here's a really nice hotel facing the beach for $88 per night in late July, and it's in a modern area just a bit south of Ipanema and Copacabana. Brazil isn't quite as cheap as Colombia, and the flight will probably cost a bit more, but you can still have a pretty cheap beach vacation in Rio de Janeiro this time of year. By the way, the Rio area is absolutely stunning and well worth the trip, but it's also known for some petty crime and even worse, so it's important to do some research and then be careful. Across the Atlantic, Europe has got hundreds of really nice beaches with great weather in summer, but because so many people have one of these months completely off work, they are packed and pretty expensive this time of year. The best deals in July and August can be found in the Canary Islands, which are run by Spain and located just across from Morocco in the North Atlantic. Not only do they have mild weather year-round, but they've got fairly pleasant summers and generally lower-priced hotels than anywhere in mainland Europe. You can get great deals on Airbnbs and normal hotels, as well as all-inclusive hotels like this one on Gran Canaria Island for $180 per night in late July for 2 people including all taxes. There are hotels and resorts on all 7 of the main islands, with Tenerife being the largest and most popular of them. Next up is Sunny Beach in Bulgaria on the Black Sea coast, and a place I've yet to make it to, even though it is the largest resort town on the entire Black Sea. A few years ago, I researched and wrote an article for priceoftravel.com about the cheapest all-inclusive resorts in or near Europe, and it was amazing to see that you could book a night in a seaside all-inclusive hotel in quite a few places for under $50 per night, but that's in the off-season. July and August, on the other hand, are by far the 2 busiest and most expensive months, so even Sunny Beach in Bulgaria is $184 per night in high season, but it's still worth noting that places like this are much cheaper in May or October, and the weather is still pretty decent. Finally, to the Mediterranean itself, Antalya, Turkey is the most popular resort area in the country, and beach resorts here are also ridiculously cheap in the shoulder seasons, but in late July it will cost $245 per night for a well-reviewed resort like this one. The center of town has amazing Roman ruins and historical sites, but the majority of resorts in this area are well north or south of there and pretty spread out. I lived near here a few years back, and at the time the resorts were very popular with Russian tourists, but I'm not sure these days. The beaches are quite nice, and the local food is really good, but not everyone realizes that the Mediterranean is pretty hot and steamy in July and August, to the point that the towns look empty from about noon until the sun goes down again, but then after that it's a big party. Speaking of beach resorts on seas that you might not expect to have beach resorts, Sharm el-Sheikh is the top Red Sea resort in Egypt, and it has hot and dry summers, but a pretty mild climate the rest of the year, so this place is fairly busy 12 months a year. I've heard good things about the place, and I look forward to going someday. The beaches may not be amazing, but apparently this is a top diving spot in the region. This all-inclusive resort goes for $145 per night, and even though Egypt is a Muslim country, that price does include unlimited alcohol as well as food. I've read quite a few reviews, and it doesn't sound like the alcohol flows like a river, but it is included and many Europeans go back every year. I mentioned that July and August are peak season in the Mediterranean, but that isn't really true in the Red Sea, so you can get even better deals in the smaller resort town of Hurghada in Egypt, which has a similar climate to Sharm el-Sheikh. Here's an all-inclusive resort for only $98 per night for 2 people, including all taxes. Again, it does include alcohol, which is actually not true of all the resorts in this area. If you're looking for something a bit different without spending a fortune, this might be an interesting adventure for certain people, and especially scuba divers looking for something new. On we go to Southeast Asia, which has dozens of beach resort areas and scores of resort islands as well, and they're all pretty cheap by US or European standards. Phuket is the largest and most popular of the Thailand islands, and it's actually one of the more expensive resort areas in Asia, relatively speaking, but you can still get a really nice hotel on a beach for $72 per night in late July, which is a pretty busy time of year with all the European visitors. There are some all-inclusive resorts here and elsewhere in Asia, but they tend not to be amazing value like they are elsewhere. First off, the normal hotels in Asia tend to be quite cheap, and the food and drinks also tend to be cheap and plentiful. Personally, I wouldn't want to fly such a long distance and then spend my entire trip on the grounds of one hotel, and that might also be why they aren't super popular here. The summer weather is hot every day, but again, if you are on or near the beach, you'll be getting nice breezes all day and it's pretty comfortable. Our second to last stop is Bali, Indonesia, and this is another place I've spent a lot of time in. Bali is actually just south of the equator, so July and August are technically part of winter here, and these months are slightly cooler than most of the rest of the year. One of many reasons to love Bali is that you can literally get pretty nice hotels a few blocks from the beach for well under $30 per night, but in this video we're comparing actual beach resorts, and for one of those you'll have to spend around $100 per night this time of year. I talk a lot about Bali in some of my other videos, but the short version is that the traffic and crowds in the main tourist district can be overwhelming, so unless you prefer to be surrounded by Australian surfers every minute of the day, it could be wise to stay in some other area of the island. I really like Lovina on the north coast, as it's much less crowded than the areas closer to the airport. Our last stop is one of my favorite beach towns in Vietnam, Nha Trang. Again, there are many other beach towns in Vietnam, Cambodia, Thailand, Indonesia, and the Philippines, so this is just an example of the extreme value you can get in this part of the world. It's hot every day of the year in this part of Southeast Asia, but the July and August temperatures aren't really too bad, and the rains don't start until September, so this place can be a good budget choice this time of year. Here's a hotel near the beach for $37 per night, and there are many cheaper places nearby, as well as even nicer places for only a bit more. If you enjoy Vietnamese food and ice-cold beers, this can be a fun place to hang out, and they've got some international restaurants as well. You can easily get by on less than $50 per person per day here for everything if you share a hotel room, so this is the cheapest place on the list and a great bargain even for Southeast Asia. Thanks for watching to the end, and please like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video. It really helps. And please let me know if you've been to any of these beach cities or have suggestions of your own.